quiet zone. So at the same time that we do what Patrick's talking about, it would make it, I think, to address the cost, would be to see what is the value to that extensive property going east and west along the railroad, is what kind of money that would generate to the city if in fact we went ahead and put the gates in, because we don't have a figure like that. But if you look at a map, we can see what exactly was identified as underdeveloped to the west, and we can look to the east and see what isn't developed, as well as the housing that would be impacted by. I think that it would raise the value of houses. And I'd like to have some expertise, somebody to look at that has that expertise, that they can come back and say, from this point west and this point east, these are the properties that would be affected, and this is the change in value and the possibility of redevelopment and development that you could generate funds from.
So how much would that cost?
Well, I think we need to find somebody and find out what it costs, because that probably could generate money for us. That would generate funds long-term. If we follow through on the study that was done when we did the America's Best Community, it specifically identified those areas and things that we needed to address in the community. And this seems to me to be part and parcel of it, that if we were to go forward with this, we could identify, we could justify it based on the increased value of property and investment in housing.
Well, let me just get clear what I'm hearing is that, do I hear that, is there anybody on council that's favor of the reflectors or concrete barriers in the middle of the road, knowing what Paul indicated, there's gonna have to be some closures of some entranceways of various properties? I mean, I don't think that's an advantage to anybody to have that, especially what Nino talked about, what happened in Twinsburg, the maintenance of it, snow plowing, those other complicated issues. It seems like the gates are the best answer throughout the city, unless somebody disagrees with that.
Well, it's interesting that the reflectors, I don't remember what you call them, but if you'll...
Delineators.
What?
Delineators.
Yeah. The gates actually prohibit you from going on the railroad track.
Right.
Those delineators, that I guess they're approved for quiet zone, you can just run them over.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to go through the intersection, you could just run it over. So it doesn't, it's not like we're comparing apples to oranges either. And what Paul said is right, but the delineators actually aren't going to stop anybody from going across the railroad track. But the gates won't. So the answer is no, I don't think anybody's in favor.
Well, also, we got to take into consideration what you're talking about and the evaluation of the increase in the possible value of the properties adjacent to it. What's the possibility of the increase of liability to the city? You got to weigh those. You have to weigh with the exposure, what increased exposure, how do we handle that exposure? Does that require us to talk to our insurance agent? I mean, is that something that we can be protected with? Those are all the other questions to be answered. I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, just do it and we cross our fingers and hope it all will end well, because you have the increased cost of maintenance. Would that possibility be that the Wheeling Lake area, what charge per year is that going to be? And we already kind of know what the maintenance is for a 2 crossing a year, don't we? Because we kind of contribute to some of that cost to the consortium.
The crossings on our city rail line, we maintain.
And we don't
pay that. They're inspected monthly.
And how much does that cost per crossing with 2 gates that we pay for?
I think, well, there's 3. And the monthly fee for inspection and testing and that kind of thing is somewhere around $500 or $600 a month.
For 3 crossings?
And we are responsible for maintenance costs, of course, and they're newer, so there's really no big ticket items, a couple thousand a year maybe.
We could gauge that, of how much that's going to cost us ongoing. Because that's a cost that we'll have to figure out, where's that coming out of the budget? Where's that going to come from? It has to come from somewhere, so some money has to come from somewhere that somebody's not going to get.
Finance department, I think Keith's already agreed.
I was just sitting here.
Yeah, I saw you trying to nod out.
To address Bill's comment, I do agree that we should look at that to see what the impact is, but when you look at the zoning map right now, the majority of the land in city limits along the railroad on the east side is mainly parkland and zoned industrial already. So I don't know to what point we're going to see a great benefit of a quiet zone throughout the city, the way land is currently zoned and used in the city. On the west side of Court Street, maybe, but there is quite a bit of commercial out that way too, until you get into the industrial zone. So I don't know if we would see a benefit or not to that for the city as a whole or not. I agree, we need to look at it, but I don't know the big benefit of it.
Mr. Marshall?
Thank you. I may talk longer than you tonight, if you allow me. First of all, you've got a great, I'm going to get myself in trouble, you've got a great company just opening up in the city of Medina called Ravago. How many cars a day do they plan to have?
The rail yard will hold 300 cars.
How many cars a day?
200 to 300.
200 to 300 a day, and they plan to do it at night. All right? So if you think the horns are interrupting people during the day, try them at night when they're sleeping. There is a lot of dismomers. Last meeting I was here in council said to Patrick, go out and find the cost of this. Find out what we're talking about. And tonight you said more than 7 or 8 times, what is the cost? What is the cost? We still haven't arrived at the cost. I attempted to do a study on behalf to find out, because I'm learning too, all right? So we sent EMHT, a copy of the report to Patrick. They're just local Ohio people. They do a lot of Ohio stuff. They're not from Dallas. They're not international. They're just local, but they're gurus. And I was wondering if we did reach out to them, or the city reach out to them for a revised quote for 7 more crossings. What they did say is what crossings they felt absolutely had to have double gates. And of course, we looked at signalization and curb on the other ones, but contrary to a few things that you've been told as council, the city of Twinsburg, the benefits of the quiet zone for the residents in council far outweigh the negative comments of our service director. Now, I understand that during the winter, there's going to be additional work for, if you picked signalization, but it's less cost, and you're worried about cost.
Well, I don't think I'm worried about aesthetics, so that's why I'm against any signalization.
Really, we need to study it a little further, because we're not blocking everything off. It's just that you can only turn one way.
No, but if you read the report for the requirements, it says that if there's a 100-foot requirement for the
Queuing your cars.
Queuing, 100-foot minimum, okay.
Right.
Unless there's an intersection nearby, then you can shorten it to 60.
Right.
But commercial driveways have to be blocked. That would block you. That would block Busy Bee.
Yeah.
Okay, that would block Mill Street. That would shut down Mill Street. Just on Court Street, right there. It would shut down the entrance to south of the Court Collision. It would shut down the entrance to the Marathon.
Okay, well, one thing Patrick said tonight, and was straightforward, is that we have not gotten these people out to the city yet. We have not recommended to them what's going on, and every crossing is a yes or no on their behalf, meaning you sell the idea. Do you think I'd like the entrance to Big Farmers Exchange blocked because
Absolutely
of crossing? Doing something good and then blocking it? Absolutely not right. So it's a form of negotiation. It's not hard and fast rules. Now, the FRA, in the first meeting that was given to you, if you read what Patrick, he did a wonderful report. Legally, since you're an attorney, they said that this quiet zone is designed to lessen the liability. Now, I don't know if the government lies to us or not, but that comes right out of their report, and it was a topic of discussion before. Let's go back to one.
Mr. Marshall, can I just stop you for 1 second, though? Are you referring, when you heard the negative comments from Twinsburg Service Director?
Right.
Or our Service Director?
Twinsburg.
Okay, because I was going to say, I've never heard anything negative coming out of Mr. Piccoli about that. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
I got a lot of pictures, I got a lot of stuff. Nino did a great job on one area where truck traffic is, and actually the city engineer says they break any more, they can start charging them, probably stop it. No pictures of residential areas of crossings and stuff. It's kind of slanted a little bit, but I have a lot of buildings, and my maintenance guy complains about anything that changes, so I expect that from anyone. I really do. But I don't want it to go overboard. The city said that the service director doesn't make an opinion of the city, and they apologize, all right? Now, but let's go to one item. Let's talk about cost. Bethany Detler has proposed and has sent it to me, a tip program on just my building. $1.4 million in 12 years. Interested? I don't know. Let's find the cost out. Let's see what it cost. Your personal opinion, you don't like the reflectors, but they're down the street and they work fine, no one's hit them. Now, that's a personal opinion of appearance. I guess I would, in a way, unusual, and I don't want to say it in public, side with you, but in a way it is. It looks cheap. I like the concrete curbs rather than deflectors to keep people in their lane. The only idea of those is to keep cars from going around with the double gates. I mean, last time we talked to the law director, how many rules is that person going to break in a car to go around? How many violations can the chief cite with them? And if they finally get hit by the train, Jesus, not your liability. But this thing's going all over the board. Why can't we go back to EMH and ask them for an update proposal rather than from a Dallas $50,000 consultant to a local Ohio guy of adding a 10, because I only asked them for 7, thinking it was a cost item, 7 was the minimum. And quote directly to you guys as a comparison. This is what you had advised to go out and find out, do the study, find out what's necessary, and find out the cost. Okay, so now we're looking at a consultant to do that. The choice is very simple right now. It's not about the color, it's not about we haven't even found out the cost, all right? I really am receptive to doing a tip, and that's just on my building, and that generates more, $1.4 million. That's a lot of money, all right? But like you, I wouldn't want to do it until such time as I found out what the real cost was. The other thing that Bill says, I have a letter here. I think you all have been copied. I had sent into the city 20 letters from prominent people, businessmen, and residents that are behind this. I didn't want to overdo it because I didn't know where it was going, and quite frankly, I hadn't heard for a while, so I just let it. It was in your lap, I'd let it go. I got other things to do. But there are people in the community that would like to see this. There are a few that don't. 95% of the people that I approach or have approached me are all for it in the community. But we need to find out how much. But until we find that out, who cares if we have double gates, or who cares if there's center dividers? Who cares? Well, I guess it's important to talk about liability, but I think you should reread what the federal government said on it. And the fact that it's less. Bill Lamb had a good idea about further development. One of the letters I sent in is from a developer that I've worked with. And if I can get over the hump of the quiet zone, he'll build apartments in the city right away. It took me all 5 minutes to get his email. All right, so there are people looking, but there are issues with them investing. Not everyone's as crazy as me about a dilapidated, condemned building downtown Medina. But that's what I'll be known for. But I'm willing to step up with my building because I started it. But all this other stuff, I don't want to hear all this other stuff till we find out the most important question: how much? Why don't we find that out? We still haven't found that out.
Well, I think that you're right, the question is how much, but I guess what I wanted to find out from council is what would it entail? Like you talk about the deflectors or the concrete barriers, and I just want to see, because that's a different cost. If those aren't going to pass, we don't even have to look at those costs. If there's not enough people to say, yes, I'll deflectors, I'm for that, I'm good with it. So if they say, well, I'm not even entertaining that idea, so if that's the case, then we gotta go to the gates, and let's just focus on the gates and what the cost of that will be ongoing in the maintenance. And that's what I wanted to try to figure out here, is anybody here wanting to see reflectors anywhere on those 10 crossings? That's my question. Because I'm in the camp of no. I don't like the aesthetics. We live in Medina. I don't want people to say, oh, I went to Medina, it's very nice by the square, but you got reflectors down. That's kind of Why'd they do that? I don't, and I think that, that's my opinion, that's not where I wanna go. I'm okay with the quiet zone with gates, that's great, if we could do it, and it doesn't, and we can figure a way to pay for it without, you know, we don't have much money in the city on our 5-year plan, we don't just say, well, does that take $2 million out for this? We figure ways to pay for those things. And Mr. Marshall's correct, and a tip for him, it doesn't cost him any more money. It just-
Oh, yes.
It changes the way taxes are paid. The taxes aren't paid to the schools, the taxes are taken from the schools and then paid to the TIF program, that's how TIF works.
Now, why would the county be with the TIF as opposed to the city? For that
Tax.
particular.
Well, the county just giving a suggestion, the TIF is, it's in the
Okay.
city, again, it's real estate taxes. It's
Okay.
improved value, and I don't know if we could do a TIF now, because it's usually improved value once a TIF is in place, and a TIF is not in place there. So my guess is the TIF may not work, from the way I understand how a TIF works.
Because of
It's already done, right?
It's already in
It's already in
progress.
progress. He's already been doing it, so the value's already been added to the parcel already, because he put money into it.
Excuse me,
He built it.
excuse me. We have no occupancy. The TIF, I went to Bethany Dentler because of her expertise. The TIF is available. We have no occupancy. We have not opened anything up. I'm still under a construction permit. In fact, this man next to me just turned me down today for a couple of things. Son of a bitch. Don't write that
But if
down.
that works, but the TIF is only increase in property value, and if you can still put it on after the work has started, I'm okay with that,
Well,
but
Bethany said it's fine, and I thought I'd bring it to your attention.
I don't know, but she's not a lawyer, but I
Well,
get it.
you know, she's got to work with you in the city. It still can be done. But it's just an avenue of how to, your biggest question is, how much and how are we going to pay for it?
Right.
Well, here's one, I don't know too many people that would come into you and say, I'm going to allow a TIF on my property that will generate $1.4 million. And does it cost me more? Yeah, it does.
No.
Yes.
It doesn't.
All right, well, talk to Bethany
I
about
will,
that
but
too.
it doesn't. I
She's-
do TIFs, I know it doesn't.
all right, so, but she has to work with you and the city, all right? 'Cause we don't need to argue the small things, really, all right? It's not whether you're right or I'm right. It's just, what are we getting to? How much are these crossings?
Right.
We still don't know that. We're back to step one. And if you all want double gates, it's gonna be more expensive, but aesthetically, it's great. It's actually safer and less liable, too, because no one can drive around the reflectors or across the concrete barriers. But,
So 7 intersections, $200,000 apiece, it's at 1.4 million, that's how much?
well, guess what I just gave in tips, 1.4 million. So what am I taking out of your pocket? And what am I bringing to the city?
The
I
only
never
the only
fought
thing that we
so
gotta
much to
estimate
bring
is the
stuff to
ongoing
city.
cost to maintain those gates, and we gotta get a number for that. We kinda get a guess, but we gotta multiply it by 7 over time. We gotta plan for that? Because that's gonna be a cost to the city, because I can guarantee you, the Wheeling Lake Erie is not gonna say, yeah, we'll pick it up.
Well, that's a good question. Since Wheeling Lake Erie has this great customer in the city, and they're doing 200 to 300 cars a day, I think they're making money.
Well, I know they are.
Now, do you think that someone in a prominent position in the city could go and have a meeting with and say, listen, gentlemen, we really don't like the idea of you moving 200 trains at night when people are sleeping. Would you help us out by sharing some of the cost?
Oh, I would love to do that. But I would hope that would work. I've worked with the Wheeling for 15 years, and I love the way you talk, but I also know the Wheeling Lake Erie.
Well, I do
He's
too.
talking about Ravago.
Oh, Ravago you're talking about, but
No.
no, the Wheeling Erie, they're paying.
If you went to Ravago, they'd probably
per
say
car.
yes right away. But if you go to a railroad, they'll say no in the first meeting. I'm the only stupid guy that got a lease with them, which made that job go. Why? Because I kept at it. And they said to me, there are 3 things unnegotiable. Without it, we're not even going any further.
I know, that's how they
I said, well,
negotiate.
why didn't someone tell me what they are instead of telling me that you're so strong? And they told me what they are, and I abided by every one of them, because it wasn't that much for me in comparison to the job. But your relationship with Wheeling as a city goes back a long time. If they could kick in a little bit, I don't know that Ravago, I don't know about going to businesses, but that's up to economic development, and I just got myself in trouble with that whole conversation. I think I'll stop at McDonald's, get my own meal tonight.
For some reason, she's shaking her head.
Yeah, well, yeah. See what, so, you know, the thing is, we're back to, really, what is the cost? And if it's double gates everywhere, would it not be appropriate to get two bids, like I do? Two bids, EMH and Dallas guy, and tell them, we're looking at double gates, can you do a study and tell us how much?
Well, I think you're right. We need, and following up with Bill's comment regarding the benefit of that, what can be the what I would call the economic benefit both for businesses and residences of the quiet zone. And we need to know kind of the intangible number associated with that. And I don't know how we get that number or who gives us that number, but I think we need that number because that's very important to make the determination of doing this. And if it's feasible to do, and there is a way, which it seems like we could figure out a way to pay for the installation costs and the ongoing maintenance costs, then it's something you look at with the gates. Because it sounds like everybody here is about the gates. I don't hear anybody here saying, yes, I want channelization of some form. So it looks like we got to figure out how do you pay for the gates and how do you quantify the benefit of the gates and the increased liability associated with the gates. We gotta make informed decisions on all that. And if we can figure out the initial cost, as Mr. Marshall indicates, figure out the ongoing maintenance that Patrick hopefully can give us associated with that, figure out the economic benefit of having the gates, and then the final thing, the way to pay for all that ongoing, I think we're all open to that. Right? I mean, if we could do a TIF, I'm into that all 100%. But from what I know, I don't know how she's coming up with, how she's gonna do it, but I'll talk to Bethany, so maybe she can educate me a little bit on that, how she came up with to do that. That would be great. Does everybody agree with that?
I'm okay with it.
So Patrick, can you accomplish that? Can you get a couple, I mean, from the, as Mr. Marshall says, give us a couple estimates of what they say and figure out the ongoing maintenance cost of that? Because we could talk to the Wheeling, but we got to assume for our purposes that nothing's going to happen, so we understand the cost.
Right.
Because they could change their mind anytime. You know, I don't know, maybe they'll sign an agreement, but I've dealt with Wheeling a lot, and they don't, unless it's to their benefit, they don't like signing things.
Yeah, I mean, they've indicated to me there would be if we did this, there would be an annual fee. For each
Is that
gate.
something they could throw in there for share?
Yeah, maybe we'll talk to them on that. And then, Mr. Huber, once you look at both the gates, maybe we can get a little better handle on the liability to the city, the increased liability, if any, to the city. So we got to take that into consideration of our decision too,
Sure.
because we don't want to open ourselves up to unlimited liability for some reason. I mean, that's something that has to be an educated decision on.
John, if I may, I'm sorry
Yes,
to
Mr. Marshall.
interrupt. If Mr. Huber could check all the quiet zones throughout Ohio, just as an example, and find out how many lawsuits that have ever been filed in any quiet zone in Ohio, it'd be interesting.
Well,
I
I
already
think-
know the answer, but I'm not gonna say it. I'll let him figure
Well,
it out.
Kathy could also just ask the clerks for your email, has anybody dealt with this issue, and has there been any liability? So you can check from your contacts to the Clerks Association to see if anybody answers. We can do that too.
I'm gonna find somebody, I'm gonna figure out how you get the valuation of that property and the investment potential on that length from east and west.
Well, maybe it's the people who already had the quiet zones implemented, they would have some
Somebody
data, I would
else.
imagine, that says before and after, this is what happened.
Yeah, but it would be good to have the specific information based on what we have available, what we've already targeted, that we know is a possibility, rather than just a general figure that they increased 5% or whatever, to see what we would be able to do with those improved properties.
Thank you. Patrick, do you have any other questions for us?
No, just, one thing we mentioned, there's no money, and then Paul mentioned ROFA. Just to be clear, and I know this is not a possibility, but there is grant money available if we were willing to close crossings. I don't think we even want to consider.
They close all 7 of them?
Medina Street's the one that they always talk
Just
about.
so you know, that they're.
Or they want to close
waiting
Medina
for
Street
money.
one time.
Yeah,
Crossing,
right.
we're not-
But then that's causes another issue. Yeah, I mean, that's always it's a question of safety for the railroad and a safety for the residents, where now our street's closed and you gotta figure out, okay, how do I get to the other side if there's an issue, whether it be EMS issue or fire.
Not to mention congestion, we've got Elman closed now, you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Elman's closed now? Jeez, I didn't notice.
Well, and I think
You must stay at your house.
Takes
several
me half an
years
hour to
ago,
get
when
to
they,
City Hall
when they,
from my
when they
house.
brought that up to us, we actually did a traffic study on Medina Street, because that was the intersection because of the blind crossing there, the bridge on Medina Street. And I thought we were all amazed at the number of, the traffic study come back with the number of cars that go through there a day, so. And it's because of the industrial area, but.
Patrick, do you remember how much money they were offering as far as a grant if that was closed?
Back then,
250,000.
yeah, it was a couple $100,000.
Yeah, it's not
That'd be
enough.
enough
Well, that's not gonna be, that's just a one-time thing. You're talking to close the street, that's not. So the time value of money is probably $2.
Yeah.
I don't know, just- Okay, well, Patrick, if you can get some information on that, and we can head down that direction, I mean, I think council's willing to entertain something of that type, and then figure out, and I could talk to Bethany to figure out if we could do a TIF on that, again, that would be great.
Okay, so we'll get another proposal for the engineering part of it, for the quiet zone, talk to the Wheeling, try to get an estimate as to maintenance costs, because it would be our maintenance costs, we'd just be paying Wheeling whenever they.
Well, they would know, I'm sure there's gonna be an upcharge, but you could talk to them and see what they want to
The
contribute.
increase in land value, I don't know how to go about that.
Well,
Bill was
you-
gonna try to research that.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill's gonna look into that.
So Patrick, when you say get another quote, you mean besides the EMHT and the one from
Well,
Texas?
No, I haven't, CTC is the one that we acquired.
Right.
I haven't spoken to EMHT.
Okay, well, I'd recommend that we have EMHT and also do the 10 crossings, so we're comparing apples to apples.
Right.
And then if you can find a third one, quotes are free.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what I can find, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Are we not talking about the Christmas lights?
We're not.
No. But there is good news.
Why get them?
Mr. Hubert?
We received a letter from an attorney's office in New York advising that a gentleman who graduated from Medina High School in 1941 died and left a bequest to the city of Medina in the sum of $75,000 or 3% of his estate, up to $75,000 for lighting the downtown square. And at this point, I don't know when that estate will close. They simply sent a letter to advise that he included this bequest in his will. And I gave it to Nino, and he had a bad day all day long.
That is fantastic news.
The best.
Not that the individual passed away, the fact that he gave a bequest.
But it's got to be probated out, so it might be a couple of years. Right?
So no, that's good stuff. Okay, well, there's your, so we're gonna have to wait a little bit regarding the lighting. And Nino said this week that if we want to see what the pole on North Court Street would look like with the lights on it, they're gonna finish it this week, so at nighttime we can go look at it and see what it looks like, and if you like it or don't like it, or.
I don't like it, and I haven't seen it.
Well,
I looked at the lights at night, and I'm thinking, those poles are skinny, and it just doesn't seem to me that that's good. I mean, I'll be happy to go look at them whenever they're up, but I'd much rather see them south of town.
Well, we are working on that too.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yes, we've spoken with Matt and Nino.
Okay, fine.
All right, I'll make a motion at 6:58 PM to go into executive session for the purpose of considering the purchase of property for public purposes, the premature disclosure of information given unfair competitive bargaining advantage to person with personal or private interest and adverse to the public interest, to include the mayor, the law director. Anybody else?
Jonathan?
If you want.
Yeah.
Okay, Jonathan.
Jonathan,
Clerk, please call the roll.
Lamb.
No, thanks, Joe.
Sturgeon.
Yes.
Sturgeon.
Yes.
Point.
Yes.
Simpson. Rose.
We'll be recessing in executive session to discuss land acquisition, taking no action of the items discussed in executive session, and then adjourning from finance and labor council. We are in recess.